Welcome friends, I'm Will Whitfield with W3 Productions. In previous videos, I've gone over several ways to import your Daz 3D characters into Blender 3D, mostly covering the diffeomorphic Daz importer, as found on this site from Thomas Larson. Today, I came across a pretty good plugin, I guess it's more official, from Daz, called the Daz to Blender bridge. And actually what Daz is doing, they made bridges to Blender, to Maya, Cinema 4D, and to 3ds Max. So today I'll be covering the Daz to Blender bridge and comparing some of the results with the diffeomorphic Daz importer. For the purposes of this tutorial, I will be referring to this as the Daz importer and this as the Daz bridge. I found that it is a lot simpler to install on both Daz and Blender, although there are some pros and cons with using any method. So I'll be going over some of those throughout the video. If you go to the Daz Store and you search for Daz to Blender Bridge, you'll get this. As you'll notice, it is free, as I believe all the plugins or bridges are, which is pretty cool. Let's see, we have a short kind of how to get started video, which I'll be going over a lot of these steps, but going a little bit more in depth with them. Also, it's kind of a promo of what you can do with it. Not very in-depth right there. We see that it is for Windows 7 and Windows 10. It says it's for Mac OS. However, it doesn't necessarily tell you what path you need to install on your Mac OS, what path you need to install the Blender side of the plugin. So you might need to do a little bit manual searching for those Mac users. And below in the notes, it tells you how to set up the plugin or add-on or bridge. On the Daz side, you pretty much are going to purchase or click on download it like you would any purchase from the store. Mind you, this is free, and you would either use the older Daz install manager, or as I've been using lately, the Daz Central application to install it. So you do that, and then the next time you go to Daz Studio, I'm using Daz Studio 4.12, and you're going to set up your scene of whatever character you like, and then you go to scripts, bridges, and however many bridges you have will be listed here: Maya, Cinema 4D, whatever. And then you go to Daz to Blender. I'll be clicking on this in a moment. Just want to go over my scene a little bit. If I haven't mentioned it before, this particular bridge is stated to work with Genesis 3 and Genesis 8 characters, male and female. It doesn't mention Genesis 1 or 2. I have not tried it out, and it very well may not work as well with those, where the diffeomorphic importer will work with those generations. My character right here is a Genesis 8 female based on the Lila character. And what I want to point out is that if I go to the iRay display, we're going to see that I gave the character a darker skin tone. And I did that by going down to surfaces and going to the character and going down to skin, lips, and nails, and I found the value for translucency weight and increased it. In this case, it was 0.95. As you can see, as it rendered, very much a darker skin tone. That's how you can get different skin tones, different shades in Daz Studio. One pitfall here is that with the Daz importer, it will carry this over. When you export, it will not do the same thing with the Daz bridge. So keep that in mind. You could do it yourself later in the on the Blender side of things, a little bit more manual, but it's one of the things you want to keep in mind. And that little trick is I can only get it to work for I-ray materials. I haven't been able to replicate that with 3DL materials. So also to note is when you use the Daz bridge, it basically imports your character in its default position, whether it's the T pose or A pose. When you use the diffeomorphic Daz importer, it will import whatever pose your character is in on whatever frame it's on. So keep that in mind as well. But let's go ahead and start using this. So again, as you install it from Daz Central or Daz Import Manager, you go to Scripts, Bridges, Daz to Blender. As far as I know, you can just leave subdivisions at 0. It's going to be pretty resource heavy as it is. Hit accept. This is misspelled, it appears, or either that's in another language. Check export for only minimal morphs. If you do all the morphs, it gets very resource intensive. I believe for this character, it used up almost over 6 to 9 gigs of memory in Blender. So let's go ahead and minimalize that. Let's see. And you can, if you want to search for more morphs, I believe you can type them in here. Most of these that are already going to go over are dealing with the face and different poses with the face. And I believe anything else that you may have modified in your scene. I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. It's going to take quite a while to export your character. I believe probably about anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. Throughout this tutorial, anytime we have wait a very long time, I'm just going to go ahead and skip ahead or fast forward so you don't have to wait all this time with me. Alright, the character is finished exporting. One thing I do want to note at this point is that it doesn't really give you an option of where to save your file. I'm not sure actually where does it save its files to. And what basically happens with the Daz to Blender bridge, it's whatever the last thing you exported, that's what's going to import on the Blender side. So it's not like you can save a bunch of files and choose which one in Blender you want to import. It's whatever the last thing you exported from Daz Studio. So that is another major difference from other methods of doing this. You have to remember what's the last thing you exported from Daz Studio, and that's what will come into Blender. So I'm in Blender 3D version 2.81 at the moment. And on the Blender side, you go to your toolbar or properties panel. And some people claim that on the right hand side, you may already see the Daz to Blender plugin. Now this is different from the Daz importer, which I'm using 1.4.2. That'll just say Daz. The Blender Bridge add-on will just say Daz to Blender, all in one word. If you don't see this here, what you would do is you go to Edit, Preferences, go to Install. You go up to, in Windows, you go to See Users, your username, go to App Data, Roaming, Blender Foundation, Blender, and what you're looking for is a folder called Daz 3D Add-ons. It could be one level higher, but this is where it is for my computer. Daz 3D Add-ons, go in there, and there's going to be a zip file, and the numbers may be slightly different. But this is the zip file you're looking for, and you click on Install Add-on. And if it's not already highlighted here, you would search for Daz to Blender, and you will click this Armature Daz to Blender. And then you click on Import New Genesis 3/8, and it will import your last exported character. and this will take quite a while. This 500 here, in my case, we'll have to go to 1000, and we'll come back when that is completed. All right, we are back, and the camera, everything, our viewport is the same position it was before, but we see a lot of things have changed. The cube was actually moved or destroyed. The camera was moved, and we see our characters come in, but it is very large. I generally import my characters at 0.01 scale. I guess this is a scale of 1, and it took the spotlight or the point light and made it into a sun. Let's take a look at what we get as a result, and then later on I will import the same character using the diffeomorphic Daz importer and do a little bit of comparison. To start out, let's look at the rigging. And the rigging's pretty cool. It is not quite Rigify, however, it is pretty close and probably a little bit better. It actually incorporates rotation limits. You can see here, this along the z-axis, it can only rotate the head in so many degrees. Same thing, like stuff like the arms, and currently the limbs by default are in forward kinematic or FK. So that's about as far as you can rotate the arm up. So same thing, the arm, you can click on each body part and kind of see the limits of rotation. Well, that's the hip, so that wouldn't matter. You can see you can only rotate the hip that far that way, or pretty high up. Like a soccer kick right there, or a football kick. And if you want to change any limb from FK to IK, you would just click on this, and when it's blue, it is now IK. It shifts the feet a little bit for some reason, and you see it when you do IK, it will make a larger box around the area. So if I take the hip and translate it down, you got IK animation. Sweet. So what else can we see here? We have a lot of face controls. Control a lot of the muscles in the face, cheeks, nose, and mouth. Open and close. Also, I'm going to go ahead and it's going to take a little while, but go to the rendered view and show the eyes, so I can show you that this control does rotate the eyes. And currently I am using the Eevee render engine. Oh no, by default it changes your scene into render cycles experimental. That is very interesting. It changes your scene to be... So for the simplicity of this scene, I went ahead and changed it to Eevee, although it probably looks a lot better, especially the hair in cycles. It's probably meant to be rendered in cycles, but for resources sake, because we're already using up 7.6 gigs of memory right now. And as you can see, total eye control, which you don't get that in all the other methods of importing Daz characters. I believe the main goal of this plugin is so you can import into Blender make your custom morphs and import back into Daz Studio. But I'm not very experienced with that, so I'm not going to go over that today. And I say that because if I go to object mode and click on the actual mesh, it has these buttons for make a new morph and go to Daz morph and a scope feature. Not going to mess with these today because I'm not sure what's going on with those. We already got a sample of what happens when you go to rendered view. It looks pretty good. The materials are pretty much ready to go as soon as you import, which is a big step up from the other methods. One thing that does, before I get to that, let's go ahead and go to, click on a mesh. And this is how the materials are showing up. Not too many. This is all for the body mesh, so not too many, about the same as the diffeomorphic importer. Let's see. These are all the shape keys that are available. Sometimes you have to go up and down a few times before all of them will load. Trying to see if I can find one that. So these seem to be the visemes or phonemes. Let me actually zoom in. You can do it this way. Some of these are driven by drivers, so you wouldn't be able to manipulate them the same way because they're driven by something else, probably the armature. Alright, with that being said, a issue that I have right now is that when I click on the armature and I hit G because I want to move it somewhere else in my scene, it doesn't go anywhere. And it does not seem to be keyframed or anything like that, so I have not figured out why that happens, other than maybe this lock icon. Huh. Just noticed this, so this is, I'm really noticing this for the first time. Oh, there we go. I was trying this before and I could not move the character anywhere without typing in the numbers here. So that is what you're going to have to do if you want to move your character about the scene, is unlock the transforms. Because I usually work on a much smaller scale, I'm going to go ahead and scale this. I'm going to do S.01, enter. Hit period on the numpad to zoom in on the character that is selected. And I'm going to hit GZX to move it along the X-axis. And now I am going to, let's see. Interesting, only in, I haven't tried the to rigify button yet, but you can only use it in the pose menu. Maybe we'll save that for another day. To finish off, I'm going to import a character from the same character using the diffeomorphic Daz importer. And this, of course, will take a few moments, so we'll be right back. And here we are with the Daz importer version of the same character. Of course, as I've explained in other videos, you have to do a couple of things to get it ready to do the same thing that this can do right off the bat, such as you have to merge all the armature of the different pieces, like the hair and the clothes, and merge them to the main armature using this button right here. I'm not sure why all of a sudden the materials come in flat shaded, because I've had the same version for a couple of months now and never noticed this before. I'm just going to do shade smooth, and I'm going to go ahead and go to rendered view using almost 10 gigs here of memory. Alright, so now both characters are in, and we can see some of the differences. The hair texture works differently in Eevee for both characters. For some reason the details on the pants are totally different. It's almost like one is inside out or something like that. I have not figured out why. Same character. I'm not sure which one's better actually, or which one's the right one. Shirts are about the same. The skin tone changes that I made in Daz Studio are preserved with the importer version right here. And they're not with the Daz Bridge version. But again, you could change them in Blender by going through the nodes. And you could also probably swap nodes between materials if you wanted to. And I'll have to make some changes manually to the eyes every time I use the Daz importer version to make the alpha channel work correctly, and I don't have to do that here. So you can pretty much see the differences for yourself, and I will probably leave you with a Cycles version comparison of the two, and you can be the judge. Again, both of these methods are free, so it's worth a shot either way. So definitely subscribe to get more videos, tutorials like this, and continue on this Daz to Blender adventure with me. Thanks for watching. Have a blessed day.